Gentlemen, we have some potentially breaking news. Daniel Bryan from WWE has reportedly signed a contract with AEW, the leader of the Yes Movement, be coming over to Wednesday nights on TNT. This could be earth-shattering to the wrestling industry, guys. One of my favorite wrestlers in WWE, Daniel Bryan, is going to fit so well into AEW if this is true. What do you guys think, man? Right off the bat, hearing this.
Man, how many WWEs is JR going to pull off when he's calling Daniel Bryan matches, guys? Like, oh, this is huge. This is as big of a signing as you could make if you're AEW. Outside of a couple names like Brock Lesnar and John Cena, which aren't going to happen ever, Daniel Bryan is right there, like with anybody you could sign. And he's as big of a star in the landscape of professional wrestling as you can imagine, and
he's about to
change the landscape. As we always say here on Dynamite Download, it would change the freaking landscape.
Yeah.
And wow, I mean, this leaked out from a few reports, Fightful and different reports that we're seeing online. And if this was true, Crayfish, what do you see happens to AEW now? Do you just see it catapulting because of the star power of Daniel Bryan?
It's obvious to me, AEW is going all in. They see chinks in the armor. They see an opportunity. Their business. They're running this incredibly like a shrewd business. They see an opportunity. And I think one of the biggest chips that they have to play with so many names that are now starting to want to come over to AEW. You're seeing the Malachi Blacks, you're seeing the Andrades, and if the rumors are true, truly a living legend. Bryan Danielson, the American Dragon, coming over, the leader of the Yes Movement, making his way over to AEW. I think the big chip that AEW has to offer that WWE simply can't offer and will not offer is the flexibility to these performers to go out and to travel the world, to make their own name and to really, I think, honor, kind of touch into that, like what professional wrestling, a lot of these guys, their roots come from. Daniel Bryan, this guy who's used to making his name on the indie scene, knows what it's like to kind of develop pockets of fan bases around the country and around the world that really are eager to see you. And I think that being able to then go out and say, man, New Japan, there's a Jay White over there, or an Okada that I want to fight, or an AEW, I want to go toe-to-toe with Kenny Omega again, or I want to go toe-to-toe with a young up-and-coming star like Jungle Boy, or so, there's a lot of matchups that, Daniel Bryan has an opportunity to have now post WWE. You think about, you said it, SPD, this guy truly over the last decade is one of the top stars that have emerged from the landscape of WWE. And he's had as big, as high a highs, as big a moments as anyone in professional wrestling. But what more can he do with that company, right? What other matchups what fun, exciting new matchups at WWE could we see with Daniel Bryan? You couldn't name a lot. There's not a lot of names that jump out at you. But when you look at the potential of him making this blockbuster deal with AEW and the rumors of him potentially then being allowed to tinker with his passion or desire to want to go and see New Japan, right? We saw Lance Archer just on AEW Dynamite Fyter Fest Night 2 winning that IWGP United States Championship. You see AEW embracing the Bullet Club, making an appearance on Dynamite this last week.
Right.
You're seeing AEW embracing that forbidden door being open. It makes a lot of sense for Daniel Bryan to come to AEW, have and with how talented and stacked this roster is, presenting him as one of the top ultimate, top guys that you could go against, but preserving him so that you're not seeing him get week after week after week, and working through all those matchups that you want to see. AEW's done a nice job, as we've talked about, stretching things out. I can only imagine the dream matchups that AEW has in mind for Daniel Bryan and the builds that we'll get for those matches. I think that this is a brilliant move. Bonds, you mentioned it. Very few names in professional wrestling in the world move the needle or change the landscape like Daniel Bryan. You're talking about in the ring and outside the ring. This guy is as good as it gets. He's as good as it gets. Pure class. Easy guy to root for, absolute phenomenal technician in the ring. So many dream matchups that we'd love to see, and I think that even more so, guys. And I'll throw this back at you. Even more than just the signing of a Daniel Bryan, and I'm not trying to minimize that whatsoever. But beyond what he can do in the ring and what he can do for the product itself, I feel like this is a landmark, like a big moment, right? In a sense that you can brush off a Malachi Black, you could brush off an Andrade, you could brush off some of these other names that have crossed over, Paul White, Christian Cage, Matt Hardy. The list goes on and on. You can come up with ways to poke holes at it, right? People can say, Malachi Black fell flat on Raw. He was great on NXT, but fell flat on Raw. He's not the star that AEW thinks they have, and all. You could do things like that and come up with creative ways to undercut what AEW has been able to do to this point.
You can't,
but you cannot do that with Daniel Bryan. You cannot do it. There's universally, I'm sorry, there's the excitement of being able to see this man do what he does best in the ring, SPD. I can only imagine how geeked you are to be able to potentially see him go toe-to-toe with some of the emerging favorites in AEW now. And I just feel like this if this is true, really no name is off limits. Bonds, maybe John Cena, as you said. Maybe John Cena is off limits, but there are other names that wrestling fans would certainly be excited to see join AEW's ranks. Certainly feel a lot more possible with this potential signing.
Anybody feels possible. I mean, Jon Moxley was a big one, obviously.
Huge.
He was a up-and-coming star with WWE as Dean Ambrose, and he was very popular, and he was good in his roles. Obviously, he wasn't happy with the creative direction. Exactly. The Shield is the best faction they've had in this century, other than maybe Evolution. They're right, they're right there, and they're awesome. But they, but man, like I don't know. This just feels different because there was no disillusion there with Daniel Bryan. There wasn't that whole there wasn't a big falling out,
bitterness.
Moxley's been very candid about how things fell through and fell apart, and why he signed with AEW. Where Daniel Bryan, I think, is going to be very complimentary to WWE, and he's going to, be very happy about his time there because he got to be the world champion. He got to main event WrestleMania. He got to do a lot of awesome things, and I think that it's going to hopefully, make a lot of wrestling fans able to kind of enjoy both shows and enjoy the other side of it, because I know that, a lot of people are bitter right now hearing about maybe the potential of CM Punk coming out of retirement to go to AEW. And now with Daniel Bryan, the big news of the night, which happened while we were on the air, and that's pretty massive. We would see a big time increase in viewership. We would see a lot of new matchups. And I think that AEW and Tony Khan knows how important star power is. And while they build their roster through young talent and unknowns that they've built themselves, having more people that they can have legitimate feuds with that can immediately come in, and you can have a 30-minute match with Daniel Bryan, and then you're a legitimate star. That puts you over on the world stage, because you can have a great match with somebody that's homegrown and unknown and hasn't been a world champion before. But even if Daniel Bryan has never been AEW champion, and if he never is AEW champion, he's been at the top of the top. And if you beat him, Or
It
if you
means
hold your
something.
own against him, it means more than it means against almost anybody else they have.
So true.
And it's massive.
Right.
So true.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
this is groundbreaking news. Hopefully, we're crossing our
Yeah.
fingers and toes that this is absolutely true. And
All the toes are
as we
crossed.
rest on it and we get closer and closer to potential actual 100% confirmation, we can just fantasy book this at all time. And we'll revisit this on our next show coming up on Friday night as well, because I want to hear more about it as we let this digest and hopefully get some more news. But the breaking news, if it's true, Daniel Bryan has signed with AEW, and man, oh man, would that be amazing.
Yes, sir.